to rock this state and rock this nation come November when we vote an agenda of change. No more. No more George Bush all the time, everywhere we go. Real challenges to the administration. Bringing our troops home from Iraq. No longer having to apologize for this administration's foreign policy. No more. We're Americans. We have a voice. We used that voice last Tuesday. We stand here at one of the finest medical centers in the United States, and we know we have family members, we have friends, we have co-workers who don't have insurance, who don't have the kind of access that they should have in one of the richest countries in the world, in the finest country in the world. I'm talking about it. I'm witnessing. I'm witnessing. That's why you got it. We're going to go down to Washington and we're going to say, George Bush, enough. Let's settle these issues. Let's have health care for every American. Let's have our school system, our American school systems, the envy of the world. No more No Child Left Behind and leaving behind the money and just focusing on testing. And you know what? We're going to solve Social Security. We're going to make sure that FDR's promise to Americans remains just that for every generation of Americans to come. No more wasting time. Now, I'm going to tell you something. You've got two of the best-looking gentlemen behind this screen running for office. Sorry, fellas. I get to say that. I'm the girl. But it's true. And the two of them really stand for something. And this is what I'm so excited about. These two gentlemen could easily have had comfortable lives. They could easily have only worried about themselves and their families. But they have stepped out. They have made extraordinary sacrifices. They have stood up to George Bush. They have stood up to the Republican majority. And they have said, just as Connecticut voters said last Tuesday, enough is enough. So I know we're all comfortable and we're all charged up and we're in our shorts and our sandals and it's great to be outside. But you also know that as each day passes closer to Election Day, the leaves turn, gets a little colder, things get a little more tense, maybe between ourselves and our co-workers or our neighbors. We stay with our message. We talk about American values. We talk about what's really important to us. And we make sure, because we have an obligation as citizens of this state and of this country, to ensure that our voices are heard and that our voices are represented in Washington by good Democrats. And so I am so proud this afternoon to introduce to you two of the finest Democrats in the United States, Ned Lamont and John Edwards.
First of all, we've got to get Diane Farrell to Congress. Chris Murphy and Joe Courtney. No more Republican rubber stamp Congress. We want somebody who's going to hold this president accountable. No more one-party rule down there in Washington, D.C. That's why we're going to take this Congress, hold this president accountable, checks and balances. That's what it's all about. I got to tell you, on Tuesday night, it was a pretty good surprise. And it's a surprise for change. People really want fighting change in the state, and that's what we voted for on Tuesday night. And I got to say that one of the first calls that Joe Lieberman got was from Karl Rove. The first call I got was from John Edwards. Let me say something serious about John Edwards. He's talking about a subject that not many people pay attention to in America right now. That's the subject of poverty. I've been in this race for 7 or 8 months. I've been going flat out around the state, and I should have been talking more about poverty because it's a disgrace in this country, and we've got to do better. And John Edwards is somebody who's making that serious and making us pay attention and knows that our country is better than that. I look at a city like New Haven. I look at most of our big cities here in the state of Connecticut. You know, these were some of the richest cities in the face of this earth going back a few generations. Now we have some of the poorest cities here. And look at what's going on. A single mom with a kid, she has to work over 100 hours at the minimum wage just to be able to afford an apartment for two here in New Haven. You know, that's wrong. That's wrong. Work has got to pay. That's what we stand for as Democrats. Work has got to pay. I do some teaching down at the public schools in Bridgeport. I care so much about these kids. These kids deserve a fighting chance at the starting line of life. And I look here in New Haven, I look at Bridgeport, I look at Hartford. About a third of these kids now are growing up in poverty. Third are growing up in poverty. We're not going to allow that to happen in America. John Edwards is not going to allow that to happen in America, and that's why we're in this race. And it's not inevitable that good-paying jobs are leaving our cities and good-paying jobs are leaving our country. We're making a lot of bad choices in Washington, D.C. Bad choices. First and foremost, what do we got to do? Rather than spending $250 million a day in Iraq, $250 million a day, now is the time for us to start investing in our own country again, investing in our city, investing in our kids, investing in our future. Instead of investing in our kids, we're leaving them a $9 trillion mortgage on their future. That's wrong, and that's going to change when the Democrats come back into office. What do we do when it comes to investment? Well, first and foremost, I'm a small business guy, and I can tell you as a small business person, we have a healthcare system in this country that is broke, and we're going to fix it. How do I know it's broke? We got 47 million people in this country with no health insurance, and many more are underinsured. I can tell you the skyrocketing cost of healthcare is hurting entrepreneurship, bankrupting small businesses, and bankrupting working families. And it's time for the Democrats to stand up and say, that's not going to stand. We're going to fix the healthcare system in this country. People sometimes ask, what do Democrats stand for? We believe that universal health care is a basic right for each and every American. We're going to make it happen. You know, when it comes to investing in New Haven, what should we be doing? Let's talk. We have a port here. Connecticut should be the gateway to New England, and New Haven should be the gateway to Connecticut. We should have a port system here. We allow products to come in. We ship products from without. We're going to invest in a transportation system, public transportation, light rail, so we can start distributing products throughout, and good-paying jobs come back to the state of Connecticut. Good-paying jobs come back to New Haven. Affordable housing. I bet you got to work 100 hours. 100 hours at the minimum wage if 30% of your income goes to affording just a two-bedroom apartment. We've got to have housing in a city like this where people can afford to live. You do that, that's when good-paying jobs start coming back. And first and foremost, we're going to invest in education again. We're going to invest in our kids. We're going to invest in our schools. The school I teach at, it's a school that has fabulous teachers, and then a bunch of security guards in the hallway. It's a school that tends to shut down at 2:30 in the afternoon, and more often than not, these kids are going home to an empty house. We're making bad choices in this country, and that's going to change. These kids are going home to an empty house. We're not giving them the best opportunities they deserve. These kids are going home to an empty house, and you've seen some of the youth violence. You've seen some of the things going on around here in New Haven. We got to give kids something to dream about. We got to give them opportunities. We got to give them hope. That starts in our schools. That starts with our parents. That starts with the investments we've got to make in this country again. I want to say one last thing. My old friend Vice President Cheney spoke out the other day. He said that Al-Qaeda was emboldened by the voters of Connecticut when they voted on Tuesday. George Bush is weakening our country. We're more dependent on foreign oil, more dependent on foreign capital. We got 132,000 troops bogged down in a civil war in Iraq. Our troops are less ready. We're less able to respond around the world. We're borrowing from procurement. It's bad. We're not taking care of homeland security. You heard what the 9/11 Commission said the other day. We're not taking care of ports. We're not taking care of public transportation, our nuclear facilities, our chemical facilities. The President is letting us down when it comes to national security. That's why you need Democrats to stand up and say we can do better. We're making a lot of bad choices, and I think one of the reasons we're making bad choices is right now we have the best government the money can buy in Washington, D.C. Who's been paying attention? How many lobbyists are there for each and every congressman in Washington? 63! 63 lobbyists for each and every congressman. Who's going to be down there and fighting for you every day? Diane Farrell will be there, I'll be there, and John Edwards will be there. Last time around, the party establishment said, Ned, I'm not sure we want to rock the boat. I think on Tuesday night, people said it's high time we rock the boat. That's what we mean to do. Without further ado, Senator John Edwards.
I'm very happy to be here, happy to be with all of you. Let me just first give many of you who haven't heard a report on my wife, Elizabeth. A lot of you know she was diagnosed with breast cancer the day after the election. She's doing great. Doing great. And second, from her perspective, equally important, she said when I got on the plane to come here this morning, you tell those people in Connecticut that I'm for Ned Lamont. I'm very proud to be here for Ned. This campaign, including the primary election, is about change. It's what America is hungry for. America no longer wants the same old politics that they've now seen for decades. They're looking for not politicians, but leaders. They're looking for somebody who will tell them the truth about what's happening in America today, and somebody who has a different vision for where America needs to go. The man who is telling the truth and the man who will provide that vision in the next United States Senator from Connecticut is Ned Lamont. I want to take just a minute and all of us together step back and think about what's happening in the world today. What's on our television screens every single day. We've seen the fighting in Lebanon. We've seen Hezbollah. We've seen Hamas launching missiles out of Gaza into Israel. We see Ahmadinejad, the president of Iran, a guy who claims the Holocaust never occurred, wants to wipe Israel off the face of the planet, sworn enemy of the United States, trying to get a nuclear weapon. Now you think for a minute about what that means. Iran gets a nuclear weapon, the Saudis will have a nuclear weapon, the Egyptians will have a nuclear weapon, the Syrians will have a nuclear weapon. So then we have a nuclear Middle East, the hottest, most dangerous, most volatile place on the face of the planet. And in the midst of all this, there's Iraq. A civil war, as Ned just made mention to, going on in Iraq right now. I want to say something personal to all of you. He hasn't heard me say this before. I voted for this war. I was wrong. I should not have voted for this war. And I take responsibility for that. And I also want you to know this is not an easy thing for me to say. And the reason is very simple. Our men and women who have served in Iraq and the men and women who have died in Iraq, they didn't make a mistake. They didn't do anything wrong. They were patriotic and courageous, and they did what their country asked them to do. It is important for me personally, and I think also important for all of us. I go around the country and around the world, for that matter now, talking about America's moral responsibility. I'm going to talk about it in just a minute. But the foundation for moral responsibility is to tell the truth. And for me, it was important to tell the truth. And I don't know how anybody in their right mind can think what's happening in Iraq right now is working. How can anybody possibly believe that? 6,000 Iraqis have died in May and June. More attacks, almost double the attacks this past month as we had in January. More roadside bombs planted in the month of July than at any time since we've been in Iraq. It's obvious to anybody that what's happening there now is not working. We need a change. We need a change in policy, a change in direction in Iraq. We need to make it clear that we're going to leave Iraq. And the best way to make that clear is to actually start leaving. And there are places in Iraq that we could bring troops out right now. At least 40,000, 40 to 50,000 troops, places that are already secure. The President of the United States could say to his military leadership, if he wasn't stuck the way he is now, that I want a plan to make sure that our combat troops are out of Iraq in 12 to 18 months. But none of that's happened. It's not just the Middle East, by the way. Other places in the world. Russia, in the last 4 or 5 years, has moved completely away from democracy. A country that had gone to democracy in the 1990s now is an autocracy. All these things are happening. And what is America doing? We're reacting. We just react. There's absolutely no indication that we have any long-term vision for the kind of world we want to live in, the kind of world America should be leading in. And I want to say to all of you, over the last couple of years, somehow I ended up with a little time on my hands. And I've been all over the world. I've been everywhere. I just came back from Israel. I was with McCain in Brussels a few weeks ago, speaking in a forum. I've been everywhere, basically. The one thing that is clear to me is that the world does not see you. They do not see the character of the American people. They have no idea that we understand, in a way George Bush does not, that while we are the preeminent power in the world, we have two responsibilities, not one. One of those responsibilities is to look after the interests of the United States of America. The second responsibility is to look after the interests of humanity. But I'm here to tell you, the world does not see you. They don't know who you are. They don't know what you're made of. They don't know what your character is. There are so many opportunities out there for us to show the world who we are. You know, we talk about poverty in America. I'm going to talk about it in a minute. Ned mentioned it a minute ago. Poverty in America is moderate compared to poverty around the world. Half of our planet lives on $2 or less a day. 3 billion people. Just before this past Christmas, I spent a little time in the slums outside of Delhi. I have to tell you, what I saw there took my breath away. I had trouble sleeping. The conditions people live in, they're not human. If you just picture in your mind for just a minute and be there with me, you know, there are these. You walk down these little narrow alleyways filled with sewage, flies, animals everywhere, rooms going on each side, people literally stacked into these rooms. When we worked our way back, we came out on a little area about twice the size of this stage. There were 4 blankets laid out on the pavement, and there were probably 15 or 20 children on each blanket. Same conditions, sewage running through, flies, smelled awful, animals all over the place. And then I realized these children were in school. This was their school. And I walked away from there and I said to myself, where is America? Where is the America that all of us believe in? Tonight, while we're having this wonderful rally, there's a genocide going on in Africa. In Sudan, in Darfur, women are being raped. Hundreds of thousands have died at the hands of the Janjaweed militia. Families are being systematically driven from their homes. I thought my country, the United States of America, said after Rwanda, we will never let this happen again. Never. And I still remember the phrase, not on our watch. You remember? Well, it's happening right now, right in front of us. Where is America? Right now, tonight, there will be a child, in fact more than one, born in Africa with AIDS. A whole new generation of children with AIDS. Why? Because their mother cannot afford a $4 dose of medicine. $4. Where's America? We're better than this. You're better than this. The world needs to see who we are. They see our power. They know we're strong. They know we're rich. Here's what they want to know from us. Do we actually care? Do we actually embrace our responsibility to look after interests beyond our own? Do we embrace our responsibility to look after the interests of humanity? I believe you do. The problem is our leadership does not, and the world does not see it. We can change that. We can change it. All of us together. We get very caught up, as we should, in these very important elections. The congressional elections, this critical Senate election, and these national elections. But I want all of you to understand what's at stake here. I love the Democratic Party. God knows I love the Democratic Party. But I love my country more. And there is so much at stake, both for America and for the world. That's what's at stake in these elections. That's what all of us are out here fighting for. And it's not just what's happening over there. We have to demonstrate that we will do what needs to be done here. You know, I grew up in the United States where we believed that we were the shining light. Remember? Before Guantanamo, before Iraq, before Abu Ghraib, we were the model for the rest of the world. By the way, we're not the only people that saw those images coming out of New Orleans. We're not. The whole world saw them. And they're watching to see if we will actually turn our backs on 37 million of our own people who wake up every day worried about feeding and clothing their children. My view is this is the great moral issue within the United States of America. There are others. There are others. Ned mentioned one. 46, 47 million people who have no health care coverage. Why can't my party, the Democratic Party, show some leadership and every single day say we will fight for universal health care for every single American? Not access to health care, not affordable health care, universal health care for everybody. Why can't we, our party, lead in an Apollo-like project to move America away from its dependence on oil from the Middle East? Why can't we be the truth tellers? And the truth is that while we need to invest in clean alternative sources of energy, wind, solar, biomass, biofuels, all of which are critically important, we cannot innovate our way out of this. We need to tell people the truth. We need to ask the country, the American people, to be patriotic about something other than war. We need to say to the country, the American people, if you want your country to be stronger, if you want your children and grandchildren to grow up in a stronger America, we can no longer drive around in vehicles that get 10 or 12 miles to the gallon. We cannot use energy the way we do today. You have to be willing to sacrifice patriotically for your country. You know, I was a teenager when I watched Bobby Kennedy go through Appalachia and show this country the other America that so much of the country didn't know about or didn't want to think about. We need to inspire this country again. I know there are a lot of things I've learned over the last 3 years, but one of those things, having spent time in virtually every place in the country, is there's a hunger in America. A hunger to be inspired again. Right. People are looking for something big and important to be engaged in, something beyond their own self-interest. We need to give it to them. And I'll tell you something else. The American people understand that national community matters. What we do together matters. What we do about 37 million of our own people who wake up in poverty every single day, it matters. Why? because it says something about the character of the United States. It says something about who we are as a people. And I'll tell you something else they understand. You understand better than the politicians. When we help the victims of the hurricane, when we do something about millions of our own people who live in poverty every day, we don't do it for them. We do it for us. Because it makes us bigger and better and stronger. And it says something about who we are. And for all those people who say there's nothing you can do, that's not the truth either. You know, one of the things that I hear from politicians all the time who push back about, I'm all over the country preaching the gospel about doing something about poverty, but one of the things I get pushed back on, they say, listen, if you've been successful in your life, you did it on your own. It's your own hard work that got you there. And if you struggle or fail, it's your own failure. It's not the truth. It's not the truth. I know it's not the truth. There is at least a remote chance that one of you remembers that I'm the son of a mill worker. You know, I've got to the point now where I feel like I can say son of a ... But it is true. It's pretty good. I got to do this speech too, right? You know, when I was born, my father had to borrow money to get me out of the hospital. Took me home to a 2-room house in the mill village. My grandparents worked in the mill. My parents worked in the mill. But here's the point. I had everything you could ever have in this country. Everything. I didn't get here by myself. I could never have gotten here by myself. My country was there every step of the way for me. Great public school teachers, a state university funded by taxpayers where I got my education. So important. None of us get to this place in our lives by ourselves. And what we do together matters. And those people who say there's nothing that can be done about poverty, there's some simple things. How about if we end the embarrassment of our national minimum wage and raise the minimum wage in America? $7.50 an hour. Tonight, while we're having this event, right across the street, there are workers working for low wages who are trying to organize a union at the hospital. We should support them in that effort. We should make it easier, not harder, for unions to organize in the workplace. We need to help people save. You know, we have a huge problem with people having no assets, nothing to fall back on. Simple. We ought to set up matching savings accounts for low-income families. We ought to match what they're able to save. But here's a more controversial subject. And when I talk about this, depending on where I am, sometimes get some squirming. So we'll warn you in advance. But I believe it. You think about those images coming into your TV screens out of New Orleans. The extraordinary, not just racial, but economic segregation. Now, you can't blame New Orleans. It exists all across America. We all know it. We can go put our head against that wall, which is what America's done for the last 3 or 4 decades, and pretend it's not true. Or we can actually try to do something about it. We have a fundamental question to ask ourselves as Americans. Do we actually believe in an America where all of us have equal worth? I believe it to my soul. I think it is the foundation of what makes this country great. Every single person here tonight has equal value. If we believe that, when are we going to actually start living together? Because I'm telling you, this economic and racial segregation is not good and not healthy for America. Here's just one idea to get the ball rolling. How long is it going to take us to figure out that clustering poor people together is not good? You know? Instead of using our public housing vouchers to create housing in the poorest neighborhoods in America, how about if we do something different? How about if we have 1 million new housing vouchers and we use them to allow poor working families to move into better neighborhoods so that they have some mobility? Rich people should not be the only ones in America who have mobility. And then finally, access to college, which some people in this community understand very well. You know, we got Bush and gang cutting billions of dollars out of the federal budget to send kids to college. This is insanity. And by the way, I got one other thing. I didn't mean to get off on this. I am so sick of these Republicans claiming the moral high ground. I mean, I really mean that. George Bush submits a budget to the Congress, billions of dollars of your money for tax cuts and subsidies for the biggest oil companies in America. Now, appropriate response. I bet a lot of you, like me, have been worried about whether Exxon's making enough money, right? I've had a lot of sleepless nights over that. But in the same budget, he took money away from nutrition programs for the disabled, for poor children, and for seniors. Billions of dollars out of Medicaid. Health care for poor children. I mean, think about this for a minute. Billions of dollars to Exxon, billions of dollars away from health care for poor children. It is immoral. Absolutely immoral. We're better than this. America's better than this. All kids ought to have a chance to go to college. We just got a model program that we put in place in a small county in eastern North Carolina. Private. I raised the money for it. But we say to every kid in the county, graduate from high school, qualified to go to college, commit to work at least 10 hours a week, we pay for your tuition and books. Very simple. It's been incredibly successful for the years put in place. Finally, and all of you are sweating saying, about time. Finally, I want to say one last thing. You know, I've had the privilege of being at college campuses, including this one, over the course of the last 2 years, talking to young people. And I always say to young people, I have seen young people on college campuses change America before, as many of you have. I saw young people lead the fight for civil rights in America. Lead it. They didn't wait for their parents or those older than them to tell them what was wrong. They knew what was wrong. And they went out with backbone and courage and passion and fought, and they changed this country. They spoke out against the long and bloody war in Vietnam, helped bring down this apartheid regime in South Africa. Young people have changed America before. They can change America again. But they can't do it by themselves. I want to say to you, finally, when I talk about our responsibility, I don't mean mine. I mean ours. Because our power together is so different than my power. Our power to change things is so different. It's all of us. It's all of us together. When we can't wait for somebody else to do it, there's too much at stake. I'll end with a line that I borrowed from an extraordinary woman. She passed away a few years ago. But she was a social activist, an organizer. And she would end her speeches by saying, you know, the leaders we've been waiting for are us. She's exactly right. If we want to live in a moral, honest, and just America, and if we want America to lead in a moral and just world, we have to do it, all of us together, starting with this election in November. God bless you all. Honor and privilege to be with you tonight. Thank you.